Hi, today we're going to be talking about lowering blood pressure with meal planning and preparation. My name is Bonnie Keating. I'm currently going for my master's in applied nutrition with my expected graduation date being August of 2019. I currently have a master's of science in sports and health sciences that I received in 2016. I've been working with the military population in the field of health and fitness for the last 10 years, primarily working mostly with Marines and their families, but also um, sailors and members of the Coast Guard. Also, currently in the last 2 years, I've been working as a health promotion manager, um, basically as a health educator. And so I work for a company called Marine Corps Community Services that works directly with the Marine Corps. For today's class, our learning objectives are going to be to identify areas for improvement in your diet, implementing nutrition principles to make healthy changes to decrease hypertension, identifying low salt foods to purchase and prepare, and also discuss the benefits for blood pressure when eating a low sodium diet. So here's an outline of the presentation. We're going to go into further detail about fast food facts in the U.S., go into detail about why people choose fast food with their busy schedules and how a schedule can dictate the type of foods that you choose to eat. What is in fast food, learning actually how much sodium is in fast food, the reason why we consume fast food, talking about hypertension, defining what hypertension is and the different stages of it, and how it relates to sodium consumption in the diet. We're going to identify foods that are high in sodium and then identify foods that you can consume that are lower in sodium that would be better for your health. We're going to go over ideas for meal prepping, and then the positive health outcomes of meal prepping and how it can benefit your overall diet and health. So here are some statistics about fast food. Fast food restaurants in America serve about 50 million customers a day. Americans consume more than 54 gallons of carbonated soft drinks each year. And as we know as health educators that consuming soft drinks that are full of sugar is the fastest way to consume or overconsume your caloric intake in the day, and especially getting more than you need and added sugar in the diet. Carbonated beverages in the U.S. are 3 times more popular than bottled water, milk, or coffee. Another one of the reasons I think is because beverages are so accessible sodas and carbonated beverages are so accessible. And so if you're going to pay money for something, you feel like, well, I'm not going to spend my money on just getting water. So if I'm going to spend money, it's going to be on this beverage that actually is different than the water I can get out of my faucet. McDonald's sells an average of 75 hamburgers every second. That statistic is alarming to me, especially if you think about the recommendation is, or the USDA recommendation for red meat is 1 time a week. So clearly the American population is getting way more red meat in their diet than is recommended. Also, average of 44% of Americans report eating out at least once a week. I actually would, think that statistic would be higher, in my opinion. Each day, 34% of children between the ages of 2 to 19 years consume fast food. So children at a very young age are getting less quality type of nutrients in their diet, and you can tell that it's affecting children earlier on because the childhood obesity rates are just getting worse each year. Americans spend an average of $1,200 each year on fast food, and I think this is actually would be a much higher amount. Clearly, $1,200 I don't think is enough to get people to stop consuming fast food. I feel like people would need to see a larger dollar amount to have an impact. It's estimated that 20% of all American meals are eaten in the car. Obviously, eating in the car is not the way to eat your meals. You shouldn't be distracted while eating. You shouldn't eat at the computer. You can't really, your brain and your stomach aren't communicating because you're distracted. And then now you're driving, worried about going to your next activity, and you're not actually focused on how much you're consuming and what you're consuming. So another issue with fast food is it's more available. Its cost has gone down. Food cost has gone down. Statistics says that in 2006, average family spends only 9.9% of their income on food, versus 40 years ago, they had to spend a lot more of their income on food, therefore they ate out less. So now it's cheaper, they can rationalize spending more of their income on less quality food. So food expenses that go outside the house in 1966, it was around 24%. So in 2006, 42% of food expenses went to food outside the house. So that shows an even more extreme statistic about how it's basically doubled in the last 60 years. Oh, sorry, can't do math right now. In the last 40 years. So here's a graph here that shows that percentage of children eating outside of the home, at 34% of children between the ages of 2 and 19 consuming food outside the home. As you can see in the dark blue, no food consumed outside the home, which is positive, it's good. And then you can see there in the lighter blue, more than 40% of calories from fast food. That is super alarming. And then in the green, 25 to 40% calories from fast food, and then that light green, less than 25% of calories from fast food. So as you can see here, you can go down a block of any city and you can have multiple opportunities to eat some type of fast food or overly processed food. So here we can see that in this street you have Taco Bell, you have Grindr, McDonald's, and various other fast food. And you see Panda Express. So it's everywhere. You have to go out of your way to not eat fast food, and that's another issue as well. So looking into busy schedules and food choices, work schedules and family needs leave little time for healthy meal preparation. So people are choosing faster, easier options because they're justifying that they have long work days and they're taking their families from sports to music lessons to different activities, which leaves little time or energy left in the day to prepare good food at the house. When you're always on the go, you feel like, hey, I don't have time to cook. We need to eat now. So without prior planning with a busy lifestyle, you're going to end up just buying whatever is most convenient at the time. Most frequently endorsed reason for purchasing prepackaged processed meals, 57% people said lack of time, and then the other 49% said based on family preferences. So as an adult who would be responsible for a family, especially younger children, 49% of them say that, oh, well, my kids don't like this, they like that, and so I'm just going to buy them whatever they want. If you never introduce them to some of those less quality, higher processed, lower in nutrient density type of foods, they won't even know, or all they know is what you give them. So I think because your kids only like a certain type of food, I feel like you can do better by giving them a better quality food instead of them just saying, oh, I don't like that. I know when I was a kid, my family didn't, or my parents didn't necessarily worry too much about my feelings on whether I liked it or not. They just told me I was going to eat it. So why is fast food bad for you? Fast food tends to be higher in sodium, higher in saturated fat, tends to have more added sugar. It's that's calorie dense, so you could be getting a lot of calories but not a lot of nutrients. And high sodium intake can lead to hypertension, so it can lead to high blood pressure. Excess dietary salt causes blood pressure to increase. Studies show that a modest reduction in salt intake causes a significant fall in blood pressure. So if you were to just, focus on, let's say, one meal in the day, whether it's dinner or lunch, and you really tried your best to decrease the salt intake, it could have a significant improvement on your blood pressure. A reduction in salt intake to 5 to 6 grams a day will have a major effect on blood pressure, and further reduction to 3 grams a day would have even a greater effect. So 3 grams a day is a significant amount of salt still in the diet. The USDA recommends that you stay under 2,300 milligrams of salt. So obviously reducing that amount is going to have a significant effect. Foods that are going to have sodium are going to be things that are frozen, packaged, in vending machines, and then they're going to require usually just heating it up. It's already made and then it was frozen to keep, from going bad, and then you can eat it, with a shelf life, who knows, months and months, years maybe. Spam, beef jerky can have a lot of salt in it. Working with the military, MREs have a ton of salt because it's made for active duty members when they're out in the field, but sometimes that even makes them sick when they're out in the field, so it can have definitely a drastic effect in a negative way on your health. So healthy blood pressure is considered, according to the American Heart Association, to be anything less than 120/80. So when that systolic at 120 or less and your diastolic at 80 or less. And those numbers basically mean how much pressure is in your arteries when your heart is working or contracting, and then that bottom number is in between contractions. Hypertensive crisis is the extreme version of high blood pressure. Hopefully you would have identified that you have elevated blood pressure before you get to a hypertensive crisis, but this is when blood pressure exceeds 180/120. Readings that high usually indicate that you're going into organ damage, organ failure. It would be an emergency if your blood pressure was sustaining that high. In 2017, according to the CDC, 1 in 3 people in the U.S. have high blood pressure, and about 75 million people, so that's about 75 million, only about 54% of those people have it under control. So as you can see here, we have a large portion of the population in the United States that they know they have high blood pressure, but maybe they don't know some of the things they need to do to lower it, or maybe they don't feel like they've hit rock bottom yet. So I'm not going to do something about it until it's too late. I've had individuals, clients that I worked with, where I encourage them to make slight changes in their diet because we were doing health screenings at work just for some simple blood pressure screening, and they were alarmed. They didn't realize how high their blood pressure was, and they made some slight modifications to their diet, and they came back within a month and were just astonished by the fact that their blood pressure had dropped so drastically. And they even said to me, it really wasn't that hard. I just started eating real food. Some of them have injuries, so they can't necessarily do too much physical activity, but they said, hey, I just changed my diet and my blood pressure, I can already see results. So with that fact alone, it can happen, you can change your blood pressure readings pretty quickly with just some slight variations of the diet. And I think a lot of times people think they need to do extreme things in order to improve their health, and that's not That's not true.